Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody out there, wherever you may be, all around the world. Welcome to the Mavakaga channel, where in this video we're going to be discussing a very mysterious murder, suicide. Really don't know what to call this because we still don't know after 10 years, more than 10 years now, what happened to this poor boy. I hope you enjoyed tonight's video. If you have suggestions, comments, opinions, I want to hear from each and every one in the comment section below. If you like these kind of videos, also let me know. I will make them hopefully on a daily occurrence, but most importantly, I need your feedback. So again, welcome to the video, and without any more chit chat, let's just get right to the story. A very, very sad story of the boy in red. On November 5th, 2009, a 13-year-old boy named Zhijun Kuang was found dead in the family's old house. The body was hanging from the wooden beam with both hands and feet tied firmly. The victim was wearing a red dress and a woman's swimming suit. There was a pinhole on his forehead and a huge weight tied around his feet. This is one of the creepiest stories I have ever heard. It's been over 10 years now, and there's still a lot of speculation, but no final conclusion on how the boy died. Some said the boy's death is due to sexual asphyxiation. For me, it looks more like a ritual murder, and the police's conclusion is death by accident. But let's start at the beginning. I want to give you some background on the case. This whole thing happened in a village in Chongqing, China. The victim was the only son in the family. Before the tragic happened, the boy's parents, who were once peasants, were working in the North District of the city, while the boy was studying at a local boarding school in a small town in the South District. The family usually met together every weekend. They had an old house in a village not far from the boy's school, but since no one lived there, it had been abandoned for a long time. The house had 3 doors, one front door, one side door, and one back door. The back door was very discreet and blocked by 2 wooden planks plus 1 rebar. If you were not familiar with the house, you wouldn't even notice there was a back door. The villagers said the boy was a nice and sensible boy, except for a little introverted. He always went alone. They said they had never seen him playing with other kids. His classmates told the journalist that his favorite book was Liao Zhai, which was a very famous ghost story book in China. And here's the course of the event. On October 25th, 2009, before returning to school, the boy told his parents he was going to weed the old house next week. During the following week, his parents got no news from him, and they started to get worried. On November 3rd, his father called him, and no one answered. He contacted the school, but teachers told him the boy had been absent from school for the whole week. The school's explanation was that due to the outbreak of influenza, they had enough reasons to believe the boy was ill at home. The parents were shocked and totally freaked out. They condemned the irresponsibility of the school. The father immediately went to their old house. He found neither the front door nor the side door would open, but the back door was not closed. The 2 planks and rebar were taken off the ground. Entering the house, he found the boy was hanging from the wooden beam, with his hands and feet tied firmly. There was a huge weight tied around his feet. The body, wearing a red dress and a woman's swimming suit, and there was a pinhole on his forehead. He also found 32 yuan in the boy's trouser pocket. The cell phone was still in his school bag. Nothing was missing. He called the police. On December 3rd, the police released a report, said the death was an accident. They told the father that his son was accidentally killed in some kind of game involving superstition, which did not constitute a crime. They decided not to file a case. A journalist called the police to inquire about the case, but the police refused to talk about it. The father couldn't accept such answers, so he applied for reconsideration on December 11th. 10 days later, the police told him, after a thorough investigation, there was no clue of murder or suicide. The result of reconsideration was sustaining the original. The father hired a lawyer and decided to appeal to the People's Procuratorate. I don't know whether there is a positive result, because I didn't find any other further news about it. What made my hair stand on end in this case is the detail. Apparently, there was no robbing, so there was no point to murder him because of robbing him, because there was no property loss. The autopsy showed there was no trauma except the pinhole on the forehead. The first abnormality was the red dress and the woman's swimming suit. The father recognized the red dress once belonged to his niece, but there was no clue whose swimming suit it was. 2 crumpled black cloths were stuffed into the bra to form fake breasts. The mother told the journalist that her son had never shown any signs of I guess the word would be transvestism. The boy was hanging from the wooden beam, but the rope was tied around his hands instead of his neck. The way of tying was very professional, with 12 loops on each hand and foot. I have no idea whether a man could make such knots to bind himself by his own. Why was there a pinhole on his forehead? Was there any kind of sadomasochism involving putting a needle into one's brain? No idea. Another creepy thing was that the mother had a weird dream 2 days before her son's death. In that dream, there was a tall man wearing a hat and carrying a bag who she could only see his back. The mysterious man entered the old house through the back door. She didn't know who he was. This made her so nervous that she kept asking her husband to go check the old house. At the second day his return, an 80-year-old neighbor told him she saw a stranger who was wearing a hat and carrying a bag wandering in the village. And because of that hat, the old lady didn't see his face. Was this just a coincidence? Reflecting every detail, the father still couldn't understand why and how his son was dead. If the boy wanted to kill himself, why had he made it so complicated? After all, drinking pesticide was and is a major way of suicide in Chinese rural areas. The only suspect given by the father was the ex-husband of his wife. The boy's mother married twice. He was the son of her second marriage. The mother had another child with her ex-husband. When they divorced, her ex-husband gained the custody, but that child disappeared many years ago. Her ex-husband firmly believed she hid the child. 3 years ago, her ex-husband warned her if she would not hand over his child, he would take revenge. But there was no evidence to prove this man to be the murderer. Chinese occultists shared their opinions on the net. The 5 fundamental elements in Chinese occultism are metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. The weight represented the metal. The beam represented wood. The swimming suit represented water. The red dress represented fire. Different from the Western culture, in Chinese occultism, a person has 3 souls and 7 spirits. In my understanding, the soul is more like matter. It can be taken out of the body and constrained in a container or another person's body. One theory said the motivation of the murder was to cultivate a sinister ghost. The effect of the red dress was to bind the soul. The weight made the soul no way to flee into the earth. The wood had a connection with the life, so the beam had an effect to concentrate the soul. The pinhole, which was caused by a special needle, was used to separate the soul and lead the soul out of the body. The woman's swimming suit, plus the age of the boy, 13 years, represented occultism purpose. This implied the murderer wanted to get a most negative soul. Another theory said the motivation of the murder was to break the soul and make it suffer the endless 6th-path incarnation. How about a third theory? In this one, the motivation was not to gain the soul, nor to break the soul, but to prolong someone's life. Someone on the internet claimed that it was not an isolated case, but a series of killings. They said there were similar cases, which I am still trying to find. So the next part I'm going to tell you about is taken from some different Chinese forums of people who have been in PhD and who know further about the case. The only problem is it is translated from Chinese, so a bit of the translation might sound a little weird, but this is a further breakdown with a lot more detail as to what had happened and what might have happened. So again, bear with me as far as the mistakes go, but this is as close as we're going to get to finding out what really happened. So in the early morning of November 4, 2009, a migrant worker in Chongqing, Deng, who was a mother, had a nightmare. A tall and thin man who had never met suddenly appeared in her rural hometown in Banan District, Chongqing, and kept urging her, "Go look at your son. Go and see your son. Go and see your son." Deng will be awakened by this terrible dream. She does have a son, Kuang Zhijun, who is in the 1st grade of junior high school. Since he usually works with her husband, Kuang Zhijun, in Jiangbei District in Chongqing. Kuang Zhi works as a left-behind child in an old house in Guaxican, Shuangjing village. The mother was uneasy. After all, she hadn't seen the child for a while, so she urged her husband to go home and have a look and be at ease. At 12 o'clock noon on November 5th, 2009, Kuang Zhilu returned home, but only saw the corpse of his son Kuang Zhijun, who had died bizarrely. He was dressed in a swimsuit, a skirt with a hood, white flowers on his chest, wade feet, hanging beams with his hands and feet separated. In addition, there is a needle eye-sized wound on his forehead and multiple abrasions all over the body. Such a weird picture is the narrative on the scene of the Chongqing boy in red case that was so mysterious and mysterious later on. With a flick of a finger, 10 years have passed. In the past 10 years, the originally weird wonder case has become more terrifying and blurry through the layers of internet rumors and novel online articles. It's time to clear up the audio-visual and discern the truth. There are 2 main types of public opinion that explain this case in terms of mysterious and mysterious terms, namely, the theory of raising little ghosts and the theory of continuing life. There are photos that I cannot show here on YouTube as they are too graphic, but I'm sure if you did a search for them, you will find them. If you have any difficulty, let me know in the comment section below and I will guide you in the right direction. Also, do let me know in the comment section below what you think of this case. I'm very interested to hear in your opinions as well. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. But let's just go on. This isn't about the channel. This is about the story of the boy in red. Some internet articles claim that the method of killing the dead may be the Taoist forbidden technique to ingest the soul to refine the little ghosts. The evidence also seems to be exactly unrealistic. The deceased was just 13 years old and 13 days old when he died. He was dressed in red and hung on a beam of a house. The needle on his head and the eye injury were called soul needle. And he weighed on his feet. It's changing soul Tao. The scene of the crime coincides with the 5 elements art. As I said earlier, the swimsuit is water, the red dress is fire, the weight is gold, the roof beam is wood, and the ground is earth. And the time of the crime is cloudy time. The binding technique may contain some evil meanings. These designs are designed to make the deceased never exceed life after death and to retain the most yin soul, yin being Y-I-N. From the end of 2009 to the beginning of 2010, many tragedies of accidental deaths of teenagers occurred in our country. The net text integrated and organized these cases and demonstrated the so-called 7 stars. In the autumn of 2009, Chongqing Kuang Zhijun mysterious death. In February 2010, 4 people drowned in Putian, Fujian, and 5 people drowned in Zhejiang, Tiantai in February 2010. In March 2010, a girl was hanged in a phone booth in Putian, Fujian. On the same day, 2 people drowned in Zhejiang, Tiantai. Of the 13 people, 11 died of water, while the 2 who died were 5 elements belonging to water. This is exactly the famous 7-star light renewal technique. There may be more than one murderer. They disguised the murderers as accidents, one by one, and adopted this secret method to continue the life of a certain General Water. Some netizens showed the satellite map near the telephone booth in March 2010. I will post a picture of this as well, and made the following analysis. If you are observing carefully, you may have discovered that the arrangement of the houses in the lower left of the picture is very strange, a bit like the square characters used by us Chinese. Take a closer look. Yes, it's just the word Kuang, spelled K-U-A-N-G, reversed left and right. What does this word stand for? I believe you haven't forgotten the original case of the boy in red. His last name is Kuang. Quoted from The Traveler, Exploring the World, China Railway Publishing House, page 116. The detailed analysis and rigorous argumentation of folk masters have made the market for life-saving techniques and raising little ghosts quite large. What is the truth of the matter? Are the details of the crime scene exactly as described in the online article? All in all, we need to go back to the murder scene and go there to search for the facts. The embarrassing games and the various weirds and chaos of the online texts have largely satisfied the people's dark psychology and curiosity desires. However, in line with the principle of being responsible for the dead and starting from the facts, we still need to start from the truth. The crime scene began to sort out and investigate. At present, the most authoritative public material on this case is One Case of Orthostatic Asphyxiation Death, written by the Chongqing public security personnel who undertook the case and published in Forensic Medicine, Volume 26, Issue 5, October 2010. With reference to this material, we can basically solve many doubts in this case. Now pay attention. The most important points are as follows. 1. In the autopsy results, the deceased's forehead did not have a needle eye wound. The rumors of the so-called soul needle in the internet articles can be stopped. In addition, the online article claimed that Kuang Zhijun was 13 years old and 13 days old when he died. As for the 7 stars renewing life, it is even more absurd. For example, the little girl who was hanged in Putian, the police had already responded positively. Number 2. The long-circulated terms transvestism and sexual asphyxia are actually real hammers. Kuang Zhijun once personally stated that, "I saw the deceased wearing his cousin's clothes not long ago," and the deceased was wearing a swimsuit and a female skirt. He also found that there were 2 groups of fake breasts folded from black flannel in the chest. From the analysis of the drip marks of the candles on the bed and the candles on the swimsuit, the deceased still has a certain degree of self-abuse. A large number of animated CDs were found in the VCD on the scene, many of which involved the binding of iron chains and other objects. The scene of the crime indeed found 1 iron chain. The body of the deceased showed obvious characteristics of suffocation death, and the deceased's own sperm spots were detected in the stalls of the swimsuit worn. Here we need to do a simple science popularization, the so-called sexual asphyxiation. That is, the sexual psychology and sexual behavior perverted alone in a very hidden place, using a certain suffocation method to cause a certain degree of hypoxia to stimulate their sexual desire and enhance their sexuality. A sexual act of pleasure, sexual suffocation, often accidentally leads to suffocation death due to mistakes or excessive measures used. Quoted from Liu Li, editor of Atlas of Contemporary Forensic Medicine. There are plenty of original books, with the picture considering everyone's acceptance and over trial issues. It will not be shown here. In summary, the final opinion of the police is in quotes, I'm quoting this, the age of the deceased, in this case, minor, the tendency to abuse himself, animation CDs, many plots involve the binding of iron chains and other things, and old rope friction marks on the beams. It is reasonable to infer that the deceased was guided by the animation CDs and repeatedly implemented postural suffocation to achieve sexual pleasure. The purpose of this will eventually lead to death by asphyxiation. End quotes. After the body of Kuang Zhijun was found on November 5, 2009, the criminal investigation team of Banan District of Chongqing City, the Criminal Police of Chongqing Public Security Bureau, and the forensic doctor successfully came to the scene for investigation. According to the preliminary judgment by the forensic doctor, the boy died within 48 hours, which is November 3 or 4. In the evening of the same day, the police and forensic doctors carried out an autopsy on the deceased and took the internal organs back to Chongqing City for examination. 1 month later, the Banan District Police issued a notice of not approving a case for the Banan District Bureau of Chongqing Public Security Bureau to Kuang Zhijun, stating that, after review, it was found that there was no criminal fact, and it was decided not to open the case. The other one was, The accidental death certificate stated that, after investigation by the city and district criminal investigation and technical departments, the death of Kuang, excluding homicide and suicide, is an accidental death. When Kuang Zhijun asked about the meaning of accidental death, the police said to him, such as playing games can also cause death. In the more conservative and closed southwestern villages, death was caused by a particular sexual addiction. On the one hand, the relatives of the deceased could not understand it. On the other hand, if the deceased's privacy was exposed, the Kuang family would not be able to gain a foothold in the future. This matter can't be settled, and to a large extent may be because of this. However, Yunong wanted to put forward his own idea. Accidental death is indeed the most credible statement at present. But according to the deceased mother, Deng, the back door of the house is never opened and is blocked by 2 large wooden boards, plus 1 rebar. After the son died, the front door and the side door were closed, and the back door was open. 2 large wooden boards and steel bars were placed on the left and right sides of the door. Is it possible for Kuang Zhijun to have a playmate to assist during his game and hurriedly fled after causing an accident? After all, if the scene of the crime was arranged by Kuang Zhijun and the above-mentioned dresses were completed by himself, it would be almost impossible from an operational point of view. Just like everything on the internet, whenever there's a unsolved, unexplained mystery, people have a lot of questions, comments, their own theories. These are some of them I'm going to read to you. But first and foremost, again, I just want to say, I really want to hear from you all out there. What do you think about this case? And if you want me to cover other cases as well, do leave me recommendations in the comment section. I will try to gather up as much information I can and make a video about it as well. The more mysterious or unexplained, the better, of course. Anybody can cover famous cases, but I like to dive into the ones that aren't so popular, at least not so much in North America as this one. I think this one is massively huge news, and really a top story for the past 10 years in China, but not so much over here, as I don't know how many of you even have heard of this story. So again, leave me a comment in the comment section if you want me to cover other cases that aren't so famous. Which ones are they? And more importantly, let me know what you think of this case. I'd really like to hear your thoughts. Let's read some comments now. One person said, a little information to add. To the Chinese, if you die wearing red, you'll come back as a revengeful spirit. This is a superstition, and most, if not all, Chinese are aware of this. I know I have some Chinese subscribers, Kai Kai being one of them. Kai Kai, do you know anything about this? If you die wearing red, you'll come back as a revengeful spirit. Is that a superstition in Chinese folklore, or is that a real thing? Or anybody else, if you know, please let me know. Comment section below. Another person said, suddenly all these bloody cloaks and ghosts wearing red in some Asian horror and folklore makes so much more sense. I guess we do see a lot of that. Mainly those are suicide and murdered victims. I guess that's in reference to people wearing the red and covered in red. Who and how he got the older cousin red shirt. And then the reply was, just read the journal, and the father stated it belongs to the boy's cousin, and not long ago, the father kept on seeing him, the victim, wearing his cousin's clothing. Again, all speculations, not really theories or anything, but take everything you hear from any story with a grain of salt, but that does seem the most logical. Another person said, the only thing I can think of, and I don't know if you are implying this, but 13 is very young to be doing something that would lead to autoerotic asphyxiation. Do you think someone made him do it, or maybe his friend taught him? Very strange. That's not for me to answer, but for you guys to answer. Do you think someone made him do it, or his friend taught him? You guys decide. Another person said apparently his friend's parents watched porn a lot often, and he spent a lot of time at his friend's house. And both of them tried it out often. Another person said, oh geez, that's awful, but that does make a lot of sense. Again, all theories. Law enforcement determined that he died of asphyxiation. Known that he is still alive when hanged, there are no known bruises from fighting. Forehead, visible with no serious injury. Limbs, serious ligature marks over his limbs and thighs. Semen had been found on his body. The weight is 1 kilogram. There's no blunt force trauma on the head. Dirt and dust on his feet. Candle wax found on his body. Wouldn't they be able to know if the semen was indeed his own, or... I don't want to get too graphic, but when they know if it was his? Another person wrote, wow, asphyxiation. If he was hanged alive and died by asphyxiation, to me this implies a whole new level of brutality and sadism. That is, if he was coaxed or coerced into said situation by someone with sinister intentions. He essentially would have suffocated, slowly, agonizingly, as he lost the strength to inhale, exhale. I can't imagine any type of accidental scenario that would leave this poor kid suspended from the roof, with his hands overhead, his feet below, unsupported and weighted down with a large weight. I mean, yes, I know this kind of thing happens, sometimes, but not to 13-year-olds, not with weights tied, professionally mind you, to their feet. Another good point. Another person said, completely unfounded speculation here, but I wonder about the ex-husband. Could he have done this? Could he have wanted to not only exact revenge on his ex-wife Zhijun's mother, but also to cause her additional pain and humiliation by making it look like fetishism gone wrong? Is this too far a stretch? I think so, but another person wrote, the weight is around 1 kilogram. It's not large by all means. Ex-husband? Seems a bit far-fetched. The incident happened 3 years back before this happened. For this, I believe that it's actually an SM with a pedophile case that had gone wrong. The boy was not hit and was moving around the place alive with dirt and dust on his feet. Semen was found on him. Anime VCDs found over there with VCD player. The main question that is truly puzzling is how the hell his cousin Red Shirt is with him. The reports also didn't state that which cousin it is from the mother's, father's, or step-cousin. No longer a pedophile case has found out that the second party is a kid also. While I know what you mean, 1 kilogram seems large enough since the victim is a child. It adds to the insidiousness for me. A larger weight would probably have accelerated the asphyxiation, ended the boy's suffering sooner. A weight of 1 kilogram, which is 2 pounds for the people not blessed with the metric system, might have added to his physical pain and mental anguish. Hanging suspended in the air by your hands and having a weight tied to your feet is literally a medieval torture method, but might not have significantly shortened the time the poor boy was alive and conscious. All points that probably appeal to the perpetrator or perpetrators. Also, it's easier to conceal to carry something that only weighs 1 kilogram as opposed to 10 kilograms, or find something of that weight laying around at that location. I don't see how the boy could have got himself into this position, nor how he could self-inflict that pinhole prior to or during the process of hanging himself like this. Unless I'm missing a crucial detail, I'm puzzled by how an investigator could rationally conclude that this was an accidental death and that there were no clues to suggest murder. Could the police themselves be covering something up? Everything about this case is incredibly fishy. Why can't the niece's dress showing up at the crime scene be explained? Was the semen of the body tested for a DNA sequence? That's what I was saying. Why are the mother and a neighbor coincidentally offering up reports of a dream and a physical sighting that line up with one suspect's description? Did anyone ever try to figure out who this kid knew at school and interview classmates that he had a report with? Why did this unusually disturbing death of a minor get so little attention and not even so much as receive the basic dignity of a proper murder investigation? Those are some really good questions. After reading from the book, which the lead forensic is the author, he stated that the victim had a friend whose parents liked to watch pornography films. And during this time, the victim would also always go over and play from which he learned from it. The friend also had ligature marks on his neck. During that period, there's also a kid who was around the village who kept on stealing female clothing. Maybe this case had been resolved, and due to many media, there is a pinhole injury on his head, which later proved to be false, in which there are no pinhole or needle injuries on his forehead. 4 questions. The first, who was the friend he would watch pornography with? 2, was it bondage/fetish porn? 3, what are the police like in China? Are they extremely corrupt like in certain Central and South American countries, or are they basically seen as being trustworthy and friendly like in the United States, Canada, and most European countries? And 4, are there any updates about this boy's death? What do most people in China and the area where he lived or in that province think happened? 1, his classmate. Friend's parents liked to watch pornography and victim always went to his place, got exposed to it. Number 2, I have no idea. 3, no comments, as I live in Singapore and a Singaporean when the police are much more trustworthy and friendly. And 4, people still believed it to be supernatural and he is used to either in a prolonged life ritual or being kept as a boy ghost. The province didn't think much of it and they kept on living as usual, as during that period there was around another 12 murders or deaths of kids. This keeps getting more and more crazy. How did those other 12 children or young teenagers in that Chinese province die? Were they all murdered, or were some accidental deaths? As you remember, I have told you all about what happened to them. Another person wrote, the fact that the mother's first child from a previous marriage has also gone missing is pretty weird. Wild speculation, but makes me wonder if the ex-husband didn't make that kid disappear and blame it on the wife knowing full well what he did, and then knowing the boy was alone at these times, take advantage of another boy. Poor kid. No matter the cause, that seems like a terrible way to die. I know autoerotic asphyxiation is a thing, but does this seem like something like that? If this was an originally consensual act, presumably he expected someone to cut him down before he died. I can't see how he'd get into that position, or out of it without a second party. I'm guessing if it was consensual, somehow something prevented the second person from freeing him and the kid died, or looked dead, to the second person, presumably another kid, and so they ran without telling anyone? I think that's probably the most likely scenario, but it means some kid out there knows the truth, and is too shameful to say. Or possibly the law enforcement know who the other person is, and it's another kid, and they are not telling anyone to protect him for a variety of reasons. Well, the kid would be like 25, 26 now. Another person says, a few questions I have. Is 32 yuan a lot for a child? Is the number at all significant? I don't think so, but again, I guess, Kai, can you answer that? In China, is it usual for the man to be given custody after divorce? Has the disappearance of the first child been investigated? How taboo is transgenderism in rural China? Enough to get you killed? How long was he dead before discovery? Is it not odd he was gone for a week before the parents thought something was wrong? 1. The number isn't significant. I didn't think it would be. 2. No news regarding this child. 3. It's still taboo, but it's closed door, not enough for you to get killed as boys are valued highly in rural China. And 4. He was dead around 1 to 2 days. The parents tried to call him but unable to contact, and the parent went to find him immediately. As the initial write-up is done by Mulcahy, and which I had read the reports, journals there are some facts that are wrong, including the pinhole on the forehead, which is made up by netizens, and later on caught up on by the press. Dress and swimsuit are from his sister. And finally, the pinhole could suggest sexual abuse. In Vietnam, the wife usually carried, yes, way back then, a needle on the night of their marriage to prevent the highly unlikely chance of the man being stuck in the woman. Due to blood pressure or some crap, I don't know. They would prick the man on the head. I think the tradition was originally from China. Just speculation though. Again, Kai, if you know anything about that, please inform. So that's going to wrap up tonight's episode of The Boy in Red. Sad, sad story indeed. The mystery still remains. A lot of people with totally different opinions and theories as to what happened and how this boy is gone. It's up to you to decide what you feel really happened. I'm only telling you the facts as to how I received them and from the stories that other people have said, including police, which wasn't much, but better than nothing, I guess. But now, again, it's up to you to decide what really happened. I need to know your comments. Please do leave them in the comment section below. And for the final time, if you are new here, please do subscribe. And also, I would appreciate it if you can give me a thumbs up for this video, as it does take a while to make, but all I ask in return is just a thumbs up. I would appreciate that. I will be back tomorrow with another mystery. Peace and love. Stay safe. Stay strong. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. God bless. Vakaga. Out.